Breaking free from survival mode. Why your mind holds the key to energy and joy. You're listening to Your Space Today, the podcast where we decode fatigue, stress, and burnout so you can rise again. Every Tuesday, we explore the hidden connections between your habits, your health, and your happiness, giving you the tools to take back your energy and your life. Hey there, welcome to Your Space Today. Today's episode might shift how you experience your everyday life. Picture this. You roll out of bed every morning, and your first thought isn't excitement about the day ahead, it's just get through this. Maybe you're in your 30s, wondering if this crushing sense of, is this it, means you're already facing a midlife crisis. Or perhaps you're 40, gritting your teeth as you tell yourself this exhausting routine is just temporary, that someday you'll start actually living instead of merely surviving. Sound familiar? If you're nodding along, I want you to know something important. You're not alone. Here's what might surprise you. Most people don't recognize their own needs on a daily basis. They've lost touch with what brings them joy. And when they finally get time for themselves, they're too depleted to do anything meaningful with it. Today, we're going to decode exactly what's happening when you're stuck in this pattern. We'll explore why your body feels like it's betraying you, why your mind can't seem to focus on anything positive, and most importantly, how to break free. So grab your tea, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Before we go any further, I need to mention something important. Everything we're discussing today is for educational purposes only. This isn't medical advice. Think of it as information to help you have better conversations with your healthcare provider. The waiting trap. Let me tell you about David. He's 42, works as a project manager, earns a solid salary, has a nice home and a loving family. By objective measures, his life is successful. But every morning when his alarm goes off, his first thought is dread and the question, how am I going to get through this? He tells himself it's temporary, just this quarter with the big deadline, just until his kids are older, just until he gets that promotion, just until retirement when he can start really living. Here's what David doesn't realize. He's been telling himself versions of this story for 20 years. First, it was, just until I finish my degree. Then, just until I'm established in my career. The waiting never ends. The goalpost just keeps moving. By evening, David collapses in front of the television, too depleted to do anything meaningful. Over time, hobbies and friendships quietly disappeared, not by choice, but by exhaustion. He's gained weight, developed chronic back pain, and increasingly finds himself snapping at his family over minor irritations. On weekends, he tells himself he'll finally do something for himself. Instead, he finds himself doing chores, feeling vaguely guilty, and scrolling through his phone in a fog of low-grade anxiety and exhaustion. When his wife asks, "What do you want to do today?" he realizes with disturbing clarity that he has no idea. He's so disconnected from his own desires that the question feels almost threatening. Think about that for a second. When was the last time someone asked you what you wanted to do and you had a clear, immediate answer? Not what you should do, not what you need to do, what you actually want to do. What David doesn't know is that he's trapped in what I call chronic survival mode. Now, when I use the term survival mode, I'm not referring to a clinical diagnosis. I'm describing a pattern of chronic nervous system activation, where your body behaves as though you're under constant threat, even when no immediate danger is present. Research suggests this state affects millions of adults in developed nations, creating what appears to be prosperity on the outside while hollowing out the experience of actually living. Here's where it gets interesting. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between a real physical threat and a psychological one. When you're stressed about deadlines, finances, or information overload, your body responds the same way it would if you were facing an actual predator. Your stress response system stays chronically activated. And when that happens, you lose your capacity to notice the good things naturally occurring in your life. Let me show you where this path leads. Meet Maria. She's 65, recently retired after 30 years as a school administrator. For decades, she lived exactly like David, telling herself she was just waiting. Waiting to finish her education, waiting to establish her career, waiting for her children to become independent, waiting for retirement when she could finally start really living. But when retirement day arrived, something terrifying happened. Maria had no idea what to do with herself. Without the structure of work, she felt lost and purposeless. She filled her days, but nothing in them felt nourishing. The woman who once managed budgets and supervised staff now struggled with the simple question, what do I want to do today? Years of deferring her own needs and dreams had left her unable to recognize them. She found herself resenting her adult children for not calling more often, for not filling the void that she'd spent decades creating. Maria's story isn't unique. It's the predictable endpoint of a life spent entirely in survival mode. When you spend 30 or 40 years telling yourself you're just getting through this phase before real life begins, you never develop the capacity to actually enjoy life when the opportunity finally arrives. This is the trap. When you defer your own needs for decades, you don't just lose time. You lose the very capacity to recognize what brings you joy. The science of perception. Now, here's where science gets really fascinating. Dr. Richard Wiseman, a psychology professor at the University of Hertfordshire, has spent years studying why some people consistently describe themselves as lucky, while others feel chronically unlucky. In his book, The Luck Factor, he shares examples from his research that reveal something remarkable about how we see the world. In one of these illustrative setups, lucky participants often notice small opportunities, like money on the ground or a chance conversation, while unlucky participants walk right past them without realizing anything was there. What's striking isn't the money itself, it's the mindset. When Wiseman interviewed people afterward, the lucky individuals described their day in vivid detail: the pleasant weather, the interesting barista, the small, unexpected surprises. The unlucky group tended to report an uneventful or even disappointing day, completely missing what was right in front of them. The environment was identical, only perception differed. And this is exactly what chronic survival mode does to your mind. It tightens your focus around threats and difficulties, creating a kind of mental tunnel vision where anything positive becomes easy to overlook. The warm cup of coffee becomes invisible. The smile from a stranger goes unnoticed. The fact that you woke up healthy in a safe, comfortable bed fails to register. You develop what psychologists call hedonic adaptation. You get so used to comfort and convenience that these things no longer generate any positive emotion. Before we dive into how survival mode systematically undermines your well-being, I need to share an uncomfortable truth with you. When many basic needs are met effortlessly, fewer daily experiences naturally engage the brain's reward systems, making it easier to lose touch with satisfaction unless we intentionally create challenge and meaning. Let me explain what I mean. Our brains evolved over millions of years in environments where every comfort required effort. Warmth meant gathering firewood. Food meant hunting or foraging. Safety meant building shelter and maintaining social bonds. Each of these activities, when successful, triggered reward systems in our brains. Dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, these chemicals were released when we overcame challenges and met our needs. But now, you press a button and food arrives. You turn a dial and your home becomes comfortable. You swipe and scroll for entertainment. Your brain's reward systems are far less consistently engaged by daily life than they were designed to be. This creates a paradox. People living in unprecedented prosperity can feel more miserable than previous generations who faced genuine hardships. When you're accustomed to comfort, minor inconveniences feel like major crises. When you've never learned to cope with real difficulty, small setbacks become paralyzing. The reality is that most of us living in highly developed countries are extraordinarily privileged. We have safe homes, reliable access to food and clean water, and freedoms that most humans throughout history could never imagine. Yet this very privilege has created an unexpected challenge. We've become so comfortable that we've lost touch with the fundamental human need for growth, challenge, and purpose. Your brain's reward systems were designed for overcoming challenges. When everything is easy, nothing feels rewarding. The 4 Pillars framework is my attempt to synthesize research into a coherent model, one that makes the body's hidden connections visible and understandable. Now, just so we're clear, this framework is for educational use only. It's not a diagnostic or clinical tool. In my 4 Pillars framework, I look at how well-being rests on 4 foundations: fuel, movement, mind, and rhythm. Today, we're exploring how survival mode doesn't just affect one area. It systematically undermines all 4, creating a cascade where each falling pillar pulls the others down. Let me walk you through each one. The fuel pillar represents how you nourish and sustain your body. When you're in survival mode, your relationship with food becomes purely functional. You eat to get through the day, not to nourish yourself. David grabs whatever is convenient, often highly processed foods that provide quick energy but little real nutrition. He skips meals when he's busy, then overeats when he finally has a moment. But here's what's happening beneath the surface. Chronic stress disrupts your entire metabolic system. Cortisol, that's your body's primary stress hormone, signals your body to store fat, particularly around your midsection. Think of cortisol as your internal alarm system that's gotten stuck in the on position. It increases cravings for sugar and fat, foods that would have provided quick energy for our ancestors facing true threats. Research shows that elevated cortisol levels are associated with increased appetite for high-calorie foods, creating a biological drive toward the very foods that perpetuate the cycle. And it gets worse. Chronic stress also depletes crucial nutrients. Studies indicate that stress requires higher amounts of B vitamins, magnesium, and vitamin C. Over time, these deficiencies create their own symptoms: fatigue, muscle cramps, poor sleep, irritability, difficulty concentrating. David's body is running on empty, even while consuming plenty of calories. In survival mode, you're metabolically starving, even while technically well-fed. Chronic stress doesn't just make you crave junk food. It depletes the very nutrients your body needs to handle stress, creating a vicious cycle. The movement pillar represents your physical foundation, not just exercise, but how you inhabit and use your body. David used to play basketball on weekends. He used to go hiking. But somewhere along the way, movement became just another obligation on an already overwhelming list. When you're chronically stressed and exhausted, exercise feels impossible. You tell yourself you'll start when you have more energy, not realizing that movement is one of the primary ways you build energy. It's a catch-22. You need energy to move, but you need to move to have energy. Research on the neuroscience of exercise demonstrates that physical activity increases production of something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF for short, which supports the growth and maintenance of neurons. Exercise also triggers the release of endorphins and other neurotransmitters that improve mood and cognitive function. But when you're in survival mode, accessing these benefits feels like climbing a mountain. Here's another thing. Chronic survival mode often leads to chronic pain. Tension headaches, back pain, neck stiffness. These are symptoms of a nervous system stuck in fight or flight. Studies show that chronic stress increases muscle tension and inflammation, contributing to widespread pain. And when movement hurts, you move less. When you move less, you get weaker. When you're weaker, movement hurts more. It's a downward spiral. David's back pain isn't just age. It's his body literally carrying the weight of chronic stress. The mind pillar represents your mental health, emotional regulation, and sense of meaning and purpose. Survival mode does its most devastating damage here. When you're constantly in stress mode, your brain truly begins to change. Neuroimaging research shows that chronic stress reduces the functioning of the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation, while increasing the reactivity of the amygdala, your fear center. This shift makes you more emotionally reactive and less able to calm yourself. You become quicker to spot threats, slower to notice opportunities, and less able to think things through before responding. David finds himself snapping at his kids over minor things. He catastrophizes small setbacks at work. He lies awake ruminating about conversations from days ago. His inner dialogue has become harsh and critical. He feels constant low-grade anxiety he can't quite identify. When your body believes it's under constant threat, your brain prioritizes survival over everything else. Long-term planning, creativity, empathy, joy, these are luxuries your brain can't afford when it thinks you're in danger. Research on stress and cognition demonstrates that chronic stress impairs working memory, attention, and decision-making. Studies show that prolonged elevated cortisol levels are associated with reduced hippocampal volume and impaired memory formation. Your capacity to think clearly, plan effectively, and regulate emotions all diminish under chronic stress. This is why David has lost touch with what he actually wants. Goals and dreams require a sense of safety and possibility. When you're in survival mode, your brain can't access those states. Chronic stress doesn't just make you tired, it rewires your brain to see threats everywhere and possibilities nowhere. The rhythm pillar represents your daily patterns and circadian health, the natural cycles that govern when you sleep, wake, eat, and recover. When you're in survival mode, your natural rhythms break down. You stay up too late scrolling because it's the only time you feel you have to yourself. You wake up exhausted because your sleep quality is poor. You grab caffeine to force alertness rather than addressing why you're tired. Your cortisol rhythm, which should peak in the morning and gradually decline through the day, becomes chaotic. Research shows that chronic stress can flatten or reverse normal cortisol rhythms. You might have high cortisol at night, making it hard to fall asleep, and low cortisol in the morning, making it impossible to wake up feeling refreshed. Poor sleep affects everything else. Studies demonstrate that sleep deprivation impairs your metabolism, increases inflammation, weakens your immune system, disrupts hormone production, impairs cognitive function, and increases emotional reactivity. Research shows that just a single night of partial sleep deprivation can reduce insulin sensitivity by approximately 25%, while repeated nights of restricted sleep can produce changes in fat tissue insulin sensitivity of nearly 30%. Chronic poor sleep is associated with increased risk of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, and cognitive decline. David's exhaustion isn't just in his head. His disrupted sleep rhythm is creating biological dysfunction throughout his entire system. Now here's where understanding these 4 pillars becomes really powerful. This is the interconnected collapse, and I want you to watch how David's typical morning unfolds. He wakes up exhausted. That's rhythm. He skips breakfast, grabbing a pastry and coffee instead. That's fuel. His blood sugar spikes, then crashes by mid-morning, leaving him foggy and irritable. That's mind. He's too tired to take the stairs, so he takes the elevator. That's movement. By afternoon, he's consumed with anxiety about his workload, which keeps his stress hormones elevated. Mind again, which disrupts his hunger signals so he overeats at dinner. Back to fuel, which makes him feel sluggish so he collapses on the couch. Movement suffering, which means he stays up late because he hasn't done anything meaningful with his evening. And we're back to rhythm. You see how it works? Each weakened pillar stresses the others, creating a cascade of dysfunction that feeds back on itself. Poor nutrition makes movement feel impossible. Lack of movement disrupts sleep. Poor sleep impairs cognitive function and emotional regulation. Mental and emotional struggles make it harder to make good food choices or maintain healthy habits. But here's the hopeful part, and I really want you to hear this. The same interconnectedness that creates the problem can also drive the solution. When you address these systems together, even small changes create cascading positive effects through all 4 pillars. When David takes a short walk after lunch, movement, it improves his mood, mind, helps regulate his blood sugar, fuel, and contributes to better sleep that night, rhythm. One small action ripples through the entire system. Why quick fixes don't work. The uncomfortable truth is that there are no shortcuts to recovering from chronic survival mode. I know that's not what you want to hear. We all want the magic pill, the one weird trick, the quick fix. But here's the thing. The very mindset that seeks quick fixes is part of what created this problem. The belief that you can just push through, just work harder, just optimize one more thing, that's survival mode thinking. It's the same narrowed, threat-focused attention that got you here in the first place. This doesn't mean recovery is impossible. It absolutely doesn't. It just means it requires a systematic approach that addresses the interconnected nature of these 4 pillars. Think of it like trying to fix a house with a cracked foundation. You can repaint the walls, replace the carpet, update the kitchen, but if you don't address the foundation, those cracks are going to keep appearing. You can't just patch the symptoms and expect lasting results. You need to understand the structure and work with it systematically. If you just try to force better habits through willpower while your nervous system is still in survival mode, it's going to come back. The stress will return. The exhaustion will return. The sense of being overwhelmed will return because you haven't addressed the underlying state that's generating these symptoms. The good news, and there really is good news here, is that once you begin addressing these interconnected issues, improvements in one area naturally support improvements in others. The same interconnectedness that made the problem complex also makes recovery more effective once you understand how to work with it rather than against it. Your path forward. If you've recognized yourself in David's or Maria's story, you might feel overwhelmed right now. That's normal. But hear this, you're not broken or weak. Your nervous system is responding exactly as it was designed to respond to chronic stress. The solution isn't more willpower, it's understanding how to shift your nervous system out of survival mode and back into a state where thriving is possible. Knowledge gives you leverage. Once you understand your biology, you can work with your body, not against it. Before changing anything, simply observe. As you move through the next 14 days, ask yourself honestly, how many times this week did I postpone something I wanted to do, telling myself later or when I have time? When someone asked me, "How are you this week?" did I automatically say fine or busy without actually checking in with myself? How many hours did I spend this week on activities that genuinely energized me versus activities that depleted me? When was the last time I felt genuine excitement about something in my day-to-day life, not a vacation or future event, but something in my regular routine? Did I notice any moments this week where I felt present and engaged, or was I mostly thinking about the next thing I needed to do? How many times did I eat a meal without multitasking, just eating, without screens or work? When I had free time this week, did I spend it doing what I actually wanted, or did I default to passive consumption out of exhaustion? You don't need to fix everything at once. Just start noticing. Patterns will begin to emerge, and with awareness, you gain power. In just 14 days, you may be surprised by what you discover. Then, when you're ready, you can begin making small, sustainable changes, the kind that help your energy and vitality return naturally. For the next 14 days, try a small experiment. It costs nothing, and the benefits may surprise you. It might sound too simple to be effective, but bear with me. The science supports it. Here's what to do. Get a clear jar. An old jam jar works perfectly. Each evening, take a small piece of paper and write down one small positive thing that happened that day. Just one thing. Drop it in the jar. If you're thinking, nothing positive happens in my daily life, that's exactly why you need to do this exercise. Your perception has been trained to filter out the positive and focus only on problems and threats. This exercise retrains your attention. Examples to get you started. You made eye contact with a stranger and shared a genuine smile. You took 5 minutes to enjoy your morning coffee without distractions. You chose to take the stairs instead of the elevator. You had a brief but pleasant conversation with a colleague. You chose music that lifted your mood during your commute. These aren't big things. They're not Instagram-worthy achievements. They're small moments of agency, connection, pleasure, or accomplishments that are happening every day, but you've stopped noticing them. Remember, awareness always comes before transformation. The science behind it. Let me tell you why this works. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's research on positive emotions demonstrates what she calls the broaden and build effect. Experimental work shows that when people experience positive emotions like amusement or contentment, their scope of attention literally widens. Participants who watched positive emotion film clips showed broader visual attention and more flexible thinking compared with those who viewed neutral or negative clips. When you're in survival mode, your attention is narrowed to threats. You literally cannot see opportunities or solutions right in front of you, just like those unlucky people walking past the 5-pound note. But when you train your attention to notice positive experiences, your perspective broadens. Studies show that experiencing positive emotions widens your field of attention, enhances creative problem-solving, and builds enduring personal resources like resilience and social connections. This isn't wishful thinking. This is evidence-based neuroscience. You're not denying reality. You're training yourself to see reality more accurately. Because the truth is, both good and bad things happen every day. Survival mode has trained you to only see the bad. This exercise restores balance. Research demonstrates that practicing gratitude and intentionally directing attention toward positive experiences improves well-being and can shift long-term emotional patterns. When you consistently direct your attention toward positive experiences, even small ones, you create new neural connections that make it easier to notice positive aspects of your experience in the future. You're not just feeling better temporarily, you're restructuring how your brain processes information. What happens next? After 14 days of noticing what's already working, something interesting happens. You'll have a jar full of small pieces of paper, physical evidence that positive things happen in your life regularly. You'll find that your perspective has shifted enough that small additional changes feel possible rather than overwhelming. This creates the foundation for addressing the other pillars. When your nervous system recognizes some degree of safety and possibility, you have the psychological resources needed to tackle bigger changes in nutrition, movement, and daily rhythms. You might notice you have slightly more energy to make a real breakfast instead of grabbing something quick. You might find yourself choosing to take a short walk because it sounds pleasant rather than like another obligation. You might discover you can fall asleep a bit easier because your anxiety is slightly lower. Small shifts create momentum for bigger ones. 6 months from now, if you do this work, your life could look radically different. Not because everything will be perfect, but because you'll have reconnected with your capacity to notice, appreciate, and actively create positive experiences. You might wake up with actual energy, not just the absence of exhaustion, but genuine vitality. Your mental fog might clear, revealing focus and creativity you forgot you had. That chronic tension you've been carrying might ease. Your mood might stabilize, allowing you to show up fully for the people you love. These are potential outcomes supported by research when people shift their nervous systems out of chronic survival mode. The path forward isn't easy, but it's straightforward once you understand what you're working with. Every time you pause to notice something positive, every time you choose nourishment over convenience, every time you move your body with intention, every time you protect your sleep. These aren't acts of deprivation. They're acts of self-respect. You're choosing long-term vitality over short-term convenience. You can start right now. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not after the holidays, right now. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because, let's be honest, the perfect moment never comes. You have to create it. Your future self, the one who wakes up energized, who engages fully with life, who experiences genuine joy in daily moments, is waiting for you to take that first step. If you found value in today's episode, I'd really appreciate it if you'd share it with friends or family who might be struggling with similar issues. Sometimes understanding that we're not alone in this struggle and that there are real, science-based explanations for what we're experiencing, that knowledge alone can be incredibly empowering. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I'll see you next Tuesday with the next episode in this series, where we'll dive deeper into one of these 4 pillars. Until then, take care of yourself. You deserve it. Your Space Today is published weekly. For detailed information, disclaimers, and scientific references, visit the links below this podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your healthcare provider regarding any health concerns.